this wasn't disclosed before to the community.
Welcome to XXIM YouTube channel. In this video, Ankit sat down with Kaspador to get some clarity and answers about Kasplex's upcoming L2.
If I recall correctly, up to 8 reports of auditing, which are to be potentially shared with the community. Kasplex's decision is to open source, as I was saying, the components gradually.
And to tackle all those burning community questions.
Why Kasplex decided to not build the bridge for KRC20 themselves. Can you share with us who's the company that's built it? This one is from the Kaspa onion. It's going to be decentralized.
Again, people may choose to believe or not, or trust what I'm saying or not.
Supported by Kaspa.com, the leading Kaspa DeFi with DEX and lending. Igra Labs, atomic programmability on a Kaspa block DAG. Kaspa Finance, the first V3 DeFi protocol on Kaspa.
Welcome to XXIM Podcast, your home of decentralization. Today I'm here with Kasplex team member Kaspador. Welcome, Kaspador.
Hi, Ankit. Lovely to see you again.
Yeah, likewise. We connected in April, end of April, Kaspador, last time. How you been since we connected last time?
All is good, trying to juggle with different balls, but everything is fine. How about you? All good?
Yeah, no, that's awesome to hear. And we're good too. I think it's been a busy last few months, and I'm sure it's busy for you guys as well, given all the things that are coming out. So given the time constraint we have, why don't we get into it, right? So why don't we start with the delayed launch, right? Kasplex was supposed to go live on the 31st of August, which got pushed out. What was the I guess reason for the launch delay?
Sure. I think this is a question that everyone has, right? So without, let's say, deep diving into some FUD or other, let's say, messages that weren't the most polite ones, but which is fine. Kasplex took the decision to delay, to check and see and make sure that the initial infrastructure will be up and running without any hiccups, without any, let's say, downtimes or delays. And of course, to be sure that it cannot be easily, let's say, attacked or taken down, right? So what Kasplex is doing, it's scaling up, checking, and making sure that the nodes and the infrastructure behind is well set up. This didn't, let's say, this decision was, people will say that this should have been announced way earlier, potentially. Why 3 days before the launch? This is something else behind, and I'm reading all the comments. It could, in fact, I was pushing to have this done, to launch it, like per the date that has been agreed upon. But then the team said, man, if we do this, there is a risk. And the risk is that we don't want to have a failure at the launch. We don't know if there are bad actors or if there are, let's say, if there are people that are trying to do something for this. We need more time to make sure that this scales up and everything is well put. And then obviously the next question was, okay, so when should we announce the new date?
Yeah.
And that was I am taking full, let's say, accountability and responsibility for that. That was still my mistake by promoting the 31st of August, because at the end of the day, we should have said like maybe Q2 or Q3 and not give a proper date and just surprise everyone with the mainnet when it came.
Yeah. So it was more, you needed more time for testing and scaling. I mean, that's a simple answer, I guess, what I'm hearing from you. And
infrastructure,
there's always, you needed more time. And obviously the criticism is fine from the community, but I think obviously we don't take, vulgar language, or we don't accept, we want people to be fair to everyone. So I think I don't accept personally if people are, just yelling from the rooftop. You want this infrastructure to work. And if that's the reason, I personally prefer that over just going live and then failing. I don't think that's the right choice either. So what went wrong? I think that's perhaps the question that comes to me, right? Like, why it was so close to the date? What was not working at that time? Was it anything specific you can share with us?
There, I keep saying this, and but of course, people may choose to believe or not, or to trust or not. But I'm keep saying this. There are no issues or technical bugs.
Okay.
Even if there are some, let's say, voices in the space saying that you will fail to deliver, the layer two will not work. This is just smoke and mirrors from Kasplex side. Um, Again, people may choose to believe or not, or trust what I'm saying or not, but there are absolutely zero issues. And when I'm saying this, I rely on the fact that I personally tested it, and then on the audit reports, and it's not only the one report that has been shared, there are
Yeah.
like, if I recall correctly, up to 8 reports of auditing the solution end to end, which are to be potentially shared with the community throughout this
Mhm.
journey. No, not even those reports found anything wrong, right? So it was just a safety net that people decide that not people that Kasplex decided to have,
Mm.
just to make sure that the launch is starting correctly. And again, everything was running. You asked what wasn't running or what wasn't working or what was the issue. There was no issue. There is no issue. There is just a safety net that we want to have just to make sure everything starts correctly.
Yeah. No, I don't mean technical issue, right? When you say issue, it doesn't mean technical issue. It could be that there's a concern that you need more time to just do more testing, right? It's not a technical architecture issue. It could be, hey, we underestimated the time we needed to do the testing, right? Which happens all the time. So it's not a architecture or technical issue. I think that's what perhaps I was wanting to know from you, if there were, perhaps it was underestimated the time frame. But, completely understand what you're saying.
Uh, um, this wasn't disclosed before to the community, but when I was in Malaysia and when I was talking with my colleagues from Kasplex, right, we were sitting and I was asking, so should we aim for 31st of August? And they said we can do it way sooner. And then I said, okay, so let's surprise the community. They said, no, let's make sure that everything is well tested and properly running. And if we can deliver faster, we will deliver it faster. Unfortunately, obviously, it's the other way around. But the team wanted to even release the mainnet way sooner than the 31st of August.
Right. So who pulled the plug? Who's the decision maker? Is it Chris who said, "Hey, look, we need more time for, just more edge testing, if you want to call it, or some more scaling things." We didn't. So who called the shot to delay? Did yourself or Chris or someone else?
Kasplex is a larger team. What people don't know about Kasplex,
Yes.
they refer to it as like maybe 2-3 developers. In fact, there are up to almost 15 developers working on Kasplex. Core team and some, let's say, additional developers, not necessarily from the core team.
Yep.
So up to 15 people. Those people are being led by Chris. Chris is the lead designer, right? Um, if Chris is saying something, it doesn't mean that it's going to happen like he said. It's a brainstorming within the team. And there was no, let's say, no one person saying, let's do this now because I want so, or because I saw many messages saying like, you are waiting for the Fed cut rates. People are trying to find,
Seriously?
yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
crazy.
People
I
are trying
see.
to find, let's say, some motives, right, around everything, but that's not the case. The case was that we had a meeting, brainstorming. What is the best way of doing this? Should we postpone it a bit? Should we release it as it is and take any let's say potential I don't know, downtimes or anything? And the decision among the team was let's postpone it a bit until we are 100% sure that the infrastructure also
I see.
scales up and there are no issues. So it's not one guy who took a shot and saying, we do this because I want so. It was a joint discussion and decision.
Okay. All right. I guess the point you're making here is right. There are plenty of developers, 15 developers on Kasplex. I guess the criticism again from the community is because no one knows who they are, right? You haven't disclosed that, that isn't mentioned. So, I can feel that, I can see it from even our personal point of view. I think if you had them, if they were visible on the website, if they were visible on X, I think obviously that criticism will disappear. So it's a fair criticism if people do say that, hey, who are the teams behind it or people behind Kasplex. If I don't know if we have anything to say there, but we can move on if there's nothing else.
No, of course, I can add some flavor to this. There are Chris is visible and in pictures. We
Yeah.
have been as well, and we had other two
Yeah.
members that were present in Malaysia. So there were like 4 or 5 people present in Malaysia, and also in some pictures around saying, and they were representing Kasplex, right? So you have 33%, give or take, of the team being, let's say,
Sure.
publicly known. So
Yeah.
if someone wants to see the backend developer or the engineer, maybe that person is a random guy, but with a lot of expertise in what he's doing. Would it make any difference? So maybe it would, or maybe it won't. It wouldn't, right? So
Yeah.
depends. But this is
Yeah.
not like what I'm trying to say here, Ankit, is this is not a black box where people are hiding under, and there is one face, me saying, "Oh, we are 15 people." No, this is a team out of which 5 are publicly known, and they were shared, and they appeared on X, and they were on site in the events. And there are some people have travel bans. Some people don't want to be publicly known. Some people have maybe again they are not part of Kaspa or Kasplex or anything, but they are very good developers.
Right.
There are very variants.
I see. Okay. All right. Let's move on. That's cool. Thank you for, I guess, explaining situation there. So what are the new tentative dates? I think we had a space call yesterday with Nacho and Zealous team. And there was a lot of excitement and confusion from the community. So have you announced the dates, or if so, what are the dates?
No, the dates were not publicly, let's say, announced, and there is a group on Telegram created by someone with most of the, let's say, the builders on the layer 2. I wouldn't say Kasplex necessarily. Maybe they are from Igra or other layer 2s, if any, there. They received a tentative date, and I emphasize on the word tentative date, just for themselves. Of course, they share the date with the community. That is not set in stone, that date, and we are trying now, and I'm trying now not to have this to repeat the same mistake, but giving another date, and maybe it's going to rain and we'll delay one more day, and then people will say, "Oh, okay," and more fun. So the goal now for us is to launch in September, and I can say 100% sure in September, but there is no publicly known date, which is something
Okay.
that again the team is against saying.
Okay. No, fair
Lessons
enough. I
learned.
think last night when we had the space, I think guys were referring to 10th of September. They were precisely mentioning 10th. So hearing from you, you're saying there are no such dates. It's tentative entire September. So it doesn't need to be 10th. It could be 10th, but it could be entire September. But certainly within September it'll happen.
Yes, they received 10 September as the tentative date. But
Okay.
again, this wasn't put out there but it's not like something very secret. It was just for them to organize, because they have also plans and developments that they need to finish, and they needed let's say a date to look forward to, just to make sure that they are set by that date.
I see. So it was a tentative. Who sent it out? Is yourself or for
Me.
Kasplex team? Okay.
Yes,
Oh, I
I
see.
did that in our group. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Yeah, it's the Telegram Kasplex, builders Telegram group, right?
It's not Kasplex builders, it's EVM builders, not Kasplex.
Medium
This is
builders,
not, yeah, this is not
right?
related to Kasplex, as I was saying. This is related to Igra and Kasplex or any other layer tools out there. So this is not, I see it's called Kasplex EVM builders, but this is not specifically for Kasplex. I don't know. I'm not the owner of the channel. So whoever
I
did
see.
this,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, guys mentioned it's called Kasplex EVM builders, but yes, you're right. It's all the builders across both layers, layer twos. So we have some tentative dates, but be mindful, guys, that don't jump on it right away. Kaspador is saying it's tentative, but September for sure. So let's move on. Kaspador, as I said, we had a large space with Nacho and Zeal team discussing their upcoming bi-directional CAD bridge and specifically the architecture for that CAD bridge that the guys are building. But no one could really answer properly why Kasplex decided to not build the bridge for KRC20 themselves. That was a question came up early on in our discussion, and I thought it'd be a great place for us to start before we get into the architecture of layer 2 itself.
Yeah, sure. So this has been mentioned at least by me on different threads and X and posts. And they were also announced that Kasplex is not going to build KRC20 to ERC20 and vice versa bridge. And we had a lot of discussion around this on Malaysia as well. The reason is, again, everything depends on the optics and the way you are looking at the problem. Some can say you are unable to. Others would say, if you are building that, you want to have the monopoly of everything, and you are going to be centralized as much as possible. Others would say we are tied, we don't know how to do it, we have issues. It's your responsibility to have a layer, right? Bridge, sorry, because obviously it's those two are your tool, the KRC20 layer 2 and the EVM, so you should offer a bridge as well, right? So this is what I'm saying, depending on the optics. If you look from the, let's say, pod side, you would say, yes, if we do it, we will be centralized, and people will have more reasons to come back and say Kasplex is doing ABC stuff. Because, and this is going to be a longer answer, so bear with me. People are, there are three types of people, in my opinion, right? Those that don't care, they just want something up and running. Those that do care and are trying to answer, to put questions and seek answers and understand those answers. And those that apparently care, but what they are doing is to FUD one party or another. All of them are fine. Our desire, Kaspa's desire is not to be embraced and loved by everyone out there, because this will create one single layer 2, and people will, and you'll have the monopoly of everything, and then you'll be considered running the show, so to say. So it's fine to have alternatives. It's fine to not to like us. That's perfectly fine. And coming back to your question, we took the decision not to run and to build a bridge for Kasplex KRC20 to ERC20, exactly for the reason that, one, we don't want to have a component that is in our management and, let's say, responsibility. Two, as we did with the KRC20 launch, offer the teams the capability and the infrastructure to actually build something by themselves, as we did with the KRC20, and three, manage the discussions around be centralized with a bridge, or apparently not care about the community because you are not launching one. So as we saw, there are at least 2 or 3 projects that already built or are building a bridge between KRC20 and ERC20. Hence, this has been successfully tackled once again by the community, right? So if you want a short answer on why Kasplex didn't want to build one, is that we wanted to offer the base infrastructure for others to build, and we said we shouldn't have this as part of our components to avoid any discussions around being centralized, and you can rug every time. You can take the keys, you can take the tokens, you can do whatever you want, right? Obviously, some will say, yes, you are passing the responsibility to others, but at the end of the day, everyone is free to build on top of it. And again, for the third time, depends on the optics. We could have done it, obviously, like in a very short time frame, but we took the decision not to do it, just to leave it on the community.
Okay. All right. Based on the session we had with Nacho and Zealous team, they're one of the guys that are building the bridge, right? The Cat bridge, the Kaspa Alliance bridge, right? And then you have Kaspa.com is building another bridge, and I believe KSBR bot is also bridge. Based on
Nice.
the discussion I had with the Cat team, right? Let's call them Nacho plus Zealous. It didn't feel to me, at least, and you can go back and listen to the space. It's recorded. It didn't feel to me, at least, that they were feeling that it was, they had the time and luxury to do the bridge. It was a necessity that they mentioned. Both of them mentioned that they had to come up with a solution, and it was a rush solution. In a way, it is semi to full centralized solution. And I think the guys just had to come up with a solution, right? I haven't had the chance to talk to Sione from Kaspa.com. I'm sure he'll have some opinion. The guys are building, I guess, bi-directional bridge on CAD front. Sione will bridge, I think, just one single direction from layer 1 to layer 2, not the bi-directional. So I guess the question perhaps that I want to form to you, position to you, is like, based on my discussion, it didn't feel like they were enjoying building the bridge. It felt that they just had to do it because there was no other choice.
Yeah, so you are saying between layer one and layer two. What are you referring to? Sorry, to answer the question. You said it's a
No,
one-way
I'm
bridge
saying
from layer one.
no. My question, I guess, is simple question is, based on my discussion with the guys, they didn't, you were saying it's more, you left it for the community to decide if they want to build it. From my chat with the guys, they were like, well, we were rushed into it. We needed to build it. Kasplex could have built it or could have provided documentation, but there was none. So we had to just find a solution to make it happen.
Yeah, so there are 2 points you raised. One is, you are mentioning Kaspa, whom I think you said, building a bridge, a one-way route from layer one to layer two. That's not the case. We are not talking about layer one, layer two. We are talking about KRC22, which is a layer two to ERC20, another layer two. So maybe that maybe they are referring to a different bridge. I don't know that one. But if we are
No.
talking about,
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
let me clarify. Sorry, let me clarify. When I'm saying layer 1 to layer 2, it's KRC20 because essentially they are inscribed on the layer 1 Kaspa, and they now need to get to EVM, right? So perhaps that's a language. Let's call it KRC20 to EVM,
Yeah.
and they need some sort of
Okay.
bridge.
Yeah. Okay, I got you. Good. So that is one. When on your question, if they were provided with documentation or support, or let's say anything, any information for them to build, no, there was. I believe no one reached out asking, how can we do this? Can someone from Kasplex help us with this? They took the initiatives by themselves. However, Kasplex, and this can be obviously checked and discussed, Kasplex always responded to all the teams that reach out for help. And if you reach out saying, how can I do this? Or why is my code failing? I am unable to deploy a smart contract. I am unable to do ABC stuff, right? We always had someone providing let's say, the insights and help for that party to overcome whatever issue that party had. So coming back to your question, no, there was no one reach out saying, can you tell us how to do it? Should we do it? And what's the mechanism around how to do it, right? So if I already see KAT, right? Cat, the
Yeah.
Twitter and messages. I see Kaspa.com saying they are on it. I see their discussion and architecture and terminology around it. Obviously, they are onto it and they are, let's say, capable of doing it. If they need help, of course, they can obviously reach out. But for the time being, no one reach out. And you are saying that the bridge is semi to maybe full centralized. There is no bridge that is decentralized, right? So whoever
No.
builds the bridge will have maybe more or less access to the keys and to the funds, depending on the approach that they are having, right? KT seems that they went for those multi-sign and different validators and committee, which is
Yeah.
a bit more decentralized, but at the end of the day is not, right? So that's that.
If it's centralized, Kasplex could also build a centralized, could have built a centralized
Yes.
solution for a protocol that Kasplex created, which is
Yes.
KRC20.
Yeah, but as I was saying earlier, we took the decision not to touch this and leave it on the hands of the community as a whole. So of course we could have done it, but that was the internal call.
Okay, all right, that's cool. So I guess the message here that I'm hearing is if if CAT team, Kaspacom, anyone who's actually going to be building Bridge, reach out to Kasplex if you're not sure about anything. They'll be there to help you guys out on the protocol side.
You are keep saying kind of sort of discussion chat, and you are using these words that me as a not native English speaker person are suggesting that potentially you are looking for additional or more detailed or more, I don't know, information from my side, right? So I'm more than happy to provide whatever is needed, of course, if I know it. But coming back to your question, saying again why Kasper didn't take this endeavor and deliver it and or help them, as I mentioned and answered, we are always available for any questions. And there is no team that can say anything that they didn't receive their feedback or any feedback or any help from us if they reach out. So as you were concluding, yes, we are open to discuss and to reach out for any clarifications or information that is needed.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's cool. I guess I'm just trying to push that dialogue a little bit further, right? And I think that's what people expect from us. I don't want to waste your time here, if we're not going to discuss anything new. So I think I'm just trying to see if there are more things that perhaps that hasn't come out and you want to share with us. But cool, let's move on. There was another question came up, and this one is actually a fun one. And me and Aston actually had a back and forth quite a bit on this question around the interoperability between layer 2 to layer 2. So, let's assume a scenario if someone has KRC20 token, let's say Zeal, they bridge it over to Kasplex. Can they take that Zeal on Kasplex layer 2 over to IGRA? Will there be such interoperability available?
Yeah, so you should and you could potentially migrate your, I think you are saying Zeal, from Kasplex layer 2 to Binance or to Binance Smart Chain, right? Or to Arbitrum or to any layer 2. If, as you said, there is a bridge between them, right? So once IGRA is out, I'm more than sure that someone will actually build a bridge between Kasplex layer 2 and IGRA layer 2 for back and forth interoperability, right? So I don't IGRA and Kasplex, there are they are 100% EVM compatible. So whatever you can do today and port over and use a bridge from a different network, you can do that as well on Kasplex and IGRA.
Okay, I see. So you're saying someone can build another centralized bridge if that were to happen, because we don't have. I mean, if I were to really go through the base rollup architecture on the layer 1, then that interoperability becomes harder because right now Kasplex will not have any consensus mechanism, right? Nor IGRA will have any consensus. It's all done through the layer 1.
There will be a centralized bridge built by someone that would allow anyone to move their tokens from any layer to layer.
Yeah, so I guess the short version, it'll just be another centralized bridge in between that can do the job of moving assets, KRC20 assets, between Kasplex and IGRA and any other layer 2s. That's great. Thank you, Kaspador. Why don't we actually get onto the community questions now? I think some bits we've covered off, but I think it'll be good to go through the rest of the stuff. I'm going to share my screen in a second. So basically, we put out a tweet a while back and people actually gave us a lot of questions to ask you. And what I've done, basically, I consolidated those questions. I cleaned them up. So this is a list that I've put together based on the questions people asked. This is the first bunch of questions we received from Alex. And as I said, we cleaned up a lot of questions and we cleaned up language. We wanted to make sure we're respectful for everyone. So let's start with this bunch first. How does bridging Kaspa or how does bridging Cas avoids the same centralization concerns? Question mark. What are the technical differences that distinguish the Cas bridge from a potential KRC20 bridge?
As I was saying before, Ankit, at least for my knowledge and my limited knowledge, I don't know any bridge that is 100% decentralized. So it's rather, from my point of view, it's rather a decision who's taking the ownership or, let's say, the responsibility of running such bridge. And for the layer 1 to layer 2 CAS that is going to be bridged from obviously the layer 1 to EVM or layer 2, there is a third-party team that developed this bridge. There is an audit for that development as well. The audit passed without any issues. But this, what I want to make everyone, let's say, aware that this bridge is not related and not developed by Kasplex. So I think this is something that we need to wait for to receive the information on who built the bridge and how is the trust model happening there, right? And but I cannot answer from a Kasplex point of view because we have no, let's say, control over it.
So you are specifically mentioning the Kaspa native Kaspa bridge, right, over to EVM. So you're
Yeah.
highlighting that this is done by a third party, so it's not done by Kasplex, and
Yes.
perhaps also you're highlighting that it's not something you're aware of yourself. It's been audited. You can tell us that it's been audited, but you don't know what's there and how it's going to work. Can you share with us who's the company that's built it?
Yeah, no, because I don't have visibility to this. Even if um, you find this hard to believe, the audit that I've received is saying that the bridge is doing ABC stuff, and this is the smart contract. These are the potential issues. These are the potential solutions. But without having the let's say the details around it, I cannot say anything, right? So that should, I suppose, that is with KEF with Kaspa Ecosystem Foundation.
Okay, that's with KEF itself, not with Kasplex.
Yeah.
I guess this question that Alex is asking is sort of highlighting two bits, right? So he's saying, well, it's the same thing for KRC20. So this third party, if not Kasplex, this third party could have also done the bridge. So I guess this is more of a comment from him by choosing not to create a KRC bridge or provide a standardized tools for other teams to build one. Isn't it opening a door to scammers? This could lead to fraudulent implementation that exploits the absence of a trusted standard.
This is 100% correct, but again, depends on what optics you are using. Because again, if we had the bridge built by ourselves, we could have been the ones being called scammers, like some people are doing. And again, everyone is free to say whatever they think. If we offer the underlying solution and infrastructure for others to build in a Web3 space, everyone can build whatever. And for this reason, I'm going to give you an example. So I've built an application that is called Clean, that app. That application basically, once you connect your wallet to it, it allows you to revoke your spending amounts that you granted to different smart contracts. So those smart contracts don't have access to your funds, right? So it's like revoke.cash built on Ethereum. I built the same for Kasplex. Now, people are saying, wouldn't this the lack of building the bridge between KRC20 and ERC20, wouldn't it open the doors to scammers? I would say yes and no. Yes, because obviously you need to rely on a third-party team. No, because at the end of the day, anyone can build any bridge or any solution like I did, have you connect your wallet and drain your wallet. So if someone connects to my Cas Clean.app application, I can drain their wallets theoretically, right? So this also opens the door to scammers. So I've open sourced the solution and everything that how the solution is working, and I got no feedback. No one looked into it, right? So again,
Yeah.
depending on the lenses that you are using, yes, it might open, but at the end of the day, even if we would have decided to build the bridge by ourselves, there are other tools and other entry points or fail points that people can use to open the doors for other scammers. So depends on how you see this.
All right. I'll just carry on then. In that case, given that Kasplex team developed the KRC-20 standard and the layer 2 solution and has the deepest understanding on how these components work, why haven't they addressed this issue or proposed a solution? The question is more about the priority. If you have created a protocol, why not take the next step to evaluate secure bridging of assets between the protocol and the layer 2 solution?
Yeah, this is again the same topic as before and as we discussed. Yes, we could have, but it would have been under our control. So if the decision was to not to build something, then whoever has it then has the responsibility. If we had it, uh, would it make more sense for people to trust? Maybe yes, or maybe no. But this was the team's decision, so we didn't. So I cannot comment on this one more than I already did for the last 20 minutes.
That's fine. We wouldn't be discussing any more on the bridges after this. You are building the native Kaspa bridge, right? Why? Well, you're not building yourself, third party is, but you could have commissioned them to build the KRC-20 bridge. I guess that's the gist of this all the questions that Alex is asking, right?
Yeah, depends on the scope of the work done and who's doing that. As I'm not aware of who's building that and what was the scope. Maybe they have a limited scope or maybe don't have the resources. I assume this has been discussed, but again, yeah.
Let's move on. So what are the primary use cases for the Kasplex team, or primary use cases that the Kasplex team is targeting for their layer 2 solution?
Yeah, you can develop and use any, let's say, DeFi applications. You can do any Web3 application. You can have programmability, right? The difference is that you are
Yeah.
doing it on top of Kaspa. So whatever you are using today or you are used to it, let's say prediction markets or let's say staking or farming or LPs or whatever. And Kasplex is basically enabling all the solutions that exists out there on other EVM chains for people to use in Kaspa ecosystem. So there are no primarily, how was this? Yeah, primary use cases. It's just the needed infrastructure for people for developers and other teams from other layers to come to Kaspa via Kasplex and deploy their solutions on an entirely new ecosystem with an entirely new community. But there's not something specific we aim to have this and that.
All right, let's move on. This one is from the Kaspa Onion. If you can ask about nodes, running a node for the layer 2, and if it's going to be decentralized.
Yes, so this is something that we are going to release very soon. And what does this mean? The nodes, we have three types of nodes. You have a full node, you have RPC only node, and you have an RPC plus lightweight node. What does this mean? It means that if you have the bandwidth and the storage and the computational power needed, you can run all of them, any of them, or none of them. This means that the nodes are 100% up and running. They are in a Docker image. We had me myself, as in my capacity of the, let's say, partnerships and discussions with potential partners. I had 3 discussions with 3 infrastructure providers from the, let's say, Web3 space. They are all keen to host and run the nodes for Kasplex and offer them as a, let's say, as a service to the community. I would expect be it free or for a certain fee, but my expectation is that they will do it for a certain fee. So to sum up on this question, yes, everyone can run the nodes once the Docker image is out, because the Docker image is not yet out for people to just spin it up. So once the Docker image is shared, together with the RPC that has been shared already, the GitHub, they can run their nodes on their infrastructure. And moreover, or on top of this, I would say there was another question saying who can be a validator for Kasplex and what are the requirements to become a validator, right? So to validate the transactions and run your node, do you need to stake
Yeah.
1 million Cas? Do you need to provide $100,000 or whatever the other chains are doing? I spoke internally, and everyone can be a validator. There is no requirements in terms of monetary value on how to become one. So you don't need to put anything into securing, let's say the chain to run the nodes to become a validator. And then obviously everyone can become one. So this corroborated with the question from the Kaspa Onion results in a fair answer that everyone can run the nodes once Docker image is out, and if they have the computational and power needed. The computational power needed for the RPC and RPC plus lightweight node are very minimal. Like, if I recall correctly, like I suppose it was like 60 or 32 giga of RAM and some space, but not in tera. Like we are talking about gigabytes, right? Whereas the full node obviously requires more storage requirements, which Chris said it should be like, if I recall correctly, 10% more that the Ethereum guys that are running the nodes require. And that is because you need to validate and have the entire history.
If I got this part right, and you can correct me, Kaspador. So you're saying to answer this specific question, anyone from the community can run the node, right? Because you mentioned you've spoken to 3 different infrastructure provider. So yeah, who are these service providers that you've spoken to?
I can give you one name because this is known by Zilas that introduced me to Zelcore, right? So Zelcore wallet together with their team, we have a room. They said we want to integrate Kasplex layer 2 in our wallet, and they are doing that as we speak. And also they want to spin up the nodes. When it comes up to, when I'm talking about the fees, I don't want to get let's say misunderstood. I'm not saying that they will, but my expectation is that they will. But I don't know. I'm not part of their teams. Hence, I suspect that they will ask for a fee to run the nodes, but doesn't mean that it's going to be the case. Each to their own what they are going to do. The other 2 infrastructure providers, they will be. One is, I cannot say the name because he mentioned not to have anything publicly disclosed until they are up and live. They have a marketplace where you can spin up some GPUs and mining and the let's say the setup for a GPU mining marketplace, I presume, right? So they
Yeah.
offer, besides those, let's say, GPUs rentals, they offer also the computational power for other activity servers and also the nodes. And they are in the process as well. They have everything ready. They are all waiting now for the Docker image to be issued.
Each exchange is going to be running a node themselves. Zelcore, you mentioned, is a wallet, right? And they will have to run. I mean, they don't have to, but they prefer to run a node, right? I guess I'm going back to the Kaspa Onion question. He's not specifically asking if a centralized exchange is going to run a wallet is going to run a node. I think he's mostly positioning it as a community. If community members can run a node, and will you provide the documentation for it? Okay.
Yes, the Docker image together with documentation and technical requirements are to be issued.
So let's go through this one. Ryan Webb 79. Ryan Webb, unless not already published, in case I missed it, who are the validators of the network? Who are the validators, and how can people from the community be part of it? How are they avoiding centralization?
Yeah, I think I addressed this, but previously in the previous question, but happy to do it again.
Yeah.
So as I was mentioning, everyone can be a validator as soon as we obviously have the documentation and the nodes and the requirements up. There is no need to stake or to block or to lock any amounts of funds to become a validator. The bootstrapping will be done obviously by Kasplex. The bootstrapping, starting the layer 2 once on the mainnet, the nodes will be obviously run by Kasplex, And once the image is out, they can install and use the nodes. And to become a validator, again, they don't need to provide anything, but I don't know the specifics in terms of, let's say, development, if they need to do something differently rather than just hosting a node. But when I cross-checked this with my colleagues, they said there are no requirements. Everyone can be a validator. Everything is open to
I
everyone
see.
to run.
I was going to ask, like, for me, when I think about validator, it has to be very specific, right? On Ethereum side, validators have very strict, stringent conditions of slashing and other mechanisms that are built in. So I guess what I'm hearing from you, if there is no as such security model like staking requirement, how would you make sure that they are being honest? These validators are honest.
Yeah, this is why I said that. So there are two questions in this question, right? Who can become one? I said everyone. What are the requirements? I said none, as far as I know. And thirdly, the more, let's say, in-depth details on what is needed to become from a technical point of view, and or let's say from a security point of view, is something that I need also to wait for to receive from Kasplex. So to put it out there, I don't have the details around it, but for me as a, let's say, an end user, if I know that I can run a node and I can become a validator, then I want to understand also what are the requirements for doing that. Monetary wise, there are no requirements. Technical wise, I need to wait as well for the details around it.
From a single vector attack point of view, you're sort of opening the doors by saying that there are no requirements.
I think the team has a let's say, well defined picture of what is needed. But when I got the question about who can become a validator and what are the monetary requirements, the answer was everyone and none. Like everyone can do it and there are no requirements. But I got your point. We need to wait and see.
Let's move on. This one is from Drats99 Golden Bullies. There you go. What is the trust model? How users, validators establish that the operations are valid, secure, and reliable?
Yeah, so this refers to, I would say the answer is that as for the last question. And there are some questions here, as I was telling you before recording this. There are questions that I cannot answer. Hence, we need to see if and when Chris and others from the team that are obviously hands-on and can tackle any such discussions will be open for or free for a podcast. I'm sure this can be covered there as well. But for the time being, I cannot provide this.
Okay, that's fine. I think it is important question. I think Chris has to find some time. I reached out to Chris myself in July to come. I'm sure he's a busy man, but yeah, if he can find some time, it would be great to talk to him or other people. But let's keep going here. How will bridging works? I think you've answered that already. You don't know because it sits with a third party and it's managed by Kev directly, right? So you don't have much visibility on it.
Yeah.
Okay. When will they publish any documentations on the layer 2 itself? Anything you're thinking of publishing?
The documentation is out there already available, but maybe the level of the documentation is not, let's say, sufficient for some. But Kasplex issued the documentation for the layer 2, I would assume, if I recall correctly, like maybe 1.5 months back. And if needed, I can share the link with you, but it's is published.
Okay. The one I'm aware of is mostly around the RPC endpoints. That's the only one I'm aware of.
No, so when you are saying about RPC documentation, are we talking about sharing the GitHub of the components of the layer 2, or are we talking about the documentation of the layer 2 as a whole? Because if we are talking about the documentation that is available there, and I can agree that it can be improved further on, but if we are talking about the RPC that has been open sourced like 1 or 2 weeks back, that's a different topic. So on the documentation, let me provide you the link on X.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
To have it. Yeah. And for the RPC, if that's a question we can discuss. If not, not.
No, I think we can discuss it.
Just
Yeah,
just shared it with your in your chat with you now.
cool. All
So
right, let's see.
this basically covers what is Kasplex, what is the transaction flow, reorganization of the network, layer 2 block time, relayer, run your own node. As you can see, you have the light node, regular node, and archival node. If you open that, you will see such more details around this, how the relayer
Yeah,
works, and everything. And also you have, for example, the run your own node with some
yeah.
information, not all, and then you have the DK prover, which is still not yet updated. And you have everything, as you can see in the link if you open it.
I've got the link here with me, and I'm looking on my phone. I think it's just a Gitbook definitions almost. Come on, Kaspador. These are not very
Sorry?
detailed. I'm saying these are mostly just the definitions. No, like I'm going through layer 2 block time. I'm going through relayer. This is very simple, almost one pager definitions almost right. But I guess the question is, as you say, right? Will there be more stuff coming out before the mainnet goes live?
Yes, I want to do some one remark on what you are saying, like just definitions. I beg to
Yeah,
differ from what you are saying. For example, if you open the about rework, it, it explains what a rework is and how the Kasplex handle the rework. So again, then when it comes to run your own node, it says what types of nodes you can run. And then, as I mentioned before, Ankit, the technical requirements and the specifications are to be issued for the nodes. And as I mentioned before, I said whilst the documentation can be improved, the topic that and the question that you had, or not you, sorry, the golden bully had was, is there any documentation? And I provided documentation, and your reaction was, come on, Kaspador, these are just definition.
look, I think it's fair enough what you said. I guess my point is, if I go and click on the page on the Gitbook, we both
Yeah,
agree, right? Git is more of a marketing place, right? You dump all the marketing messages. It's not for the architecture, but it's fine. What I specifically, I guess, highlighted is when you go to run your own node. If you even click on that page, these are just definitions. What is a light node? What is a regular node? It doesn't even have the hardware specs for each, let alone the details of how you actually set up, all the details, how they work with each other. I hear you that there is more information to come out, yet to come out. But I just went through the links you provided just now. All I'm saying is it doesn't even tell me if I want to run a node. I wouldn't know what to do just looking at this documentation. It's just the definition. If you disagree on that, that's fine. But that's all I
I
got
don't,
out of the page. Clicked on.
I don't disagree. No, what I'm disagreeing with it is that I told you before that because we had a specific discussion about the nodes, I told you before that the requirements are to be issued, and then you open the page and you click on this and you said, look, I don't know how to run a node. Of course, you don't know how to run a node if the requirements and let's say the technical details aren't listed here. But again, the root cause question was, is there any documentation? Yes, there is, and we agreed that this is to be improved. And specifically on the nodes, I told you that the requirements are to be issued. But okay, I think we are aligned
Yeah.
somehow.
No, that's cool. That's cool. Thank you. I think, again, Kaspador, I truly appreciate for you coming on the show, discussing these things because it's important, right? But let's keep going. I think, will the community have enough time to scrutinize it? Anything you want to add there?
1 second, I'm trying to question 4. Will the community have enough time to scrutinize what the layer 2, I assume, right? That's the entire solution.
Yeah, because right now what you have is more of a, as I said, definitions from my perspective. And, but when will the whole documentation come out so people can actually have, time to scrutinize it?
Mm-hmm. I don't have a timeline for the documentation to be out because I know the team is busy for finalizing everything that is needed for the mainnet. So I couldn't say this is going to be released tomorrow and the mainnet is on 1st of January and you have 3 months to test or to scrutinize it. So without these dates, I do not know if this is going to be sufficient for the community to scrutinize the documentation. But for sure, the documentation will be improved. At what time, I do not know, and I cannot say.
Okay, all right, all right. So let's move on to the next one. You announce a security audit. When is it due? Has it happened?
Yes, of course.
Oh,
And the report has been shared.
oh, it's been shared. It's been shared
Yeah.
with the community.
It has been shared on August 25th.
All right. So this one is PKI. Sorry if I'm butchering your name. Should Kasplex fail, get hacked, etc., and related funds disappear, will KEF be liable?
So Kasplex is a non-profit organization, right? Which is being, let's say, funded by Kaspa Ecosystem Foundation. I do not work and I do not have any, let's say, inside, if you want to put it like this, information of what they are doing. My role is to be a business developer and partner for Kasplex. So when it comes to if KEF will be responsible for the potential failure of Kasplex, I would like to defer this to Johnny or someone from KEF. I do not know what's their security model there.
I mean, it's an interesting question, but perhaps if you change it to Kasplex.
Well, of course, I would say because if you let's say develop something, right, and if depends if there is a, let's say a D app that is running on Kasplex and that D app is stealing money or doing something, that has nothing to do with Kasplex, right? Like
No,
any
of course not.
any party that is developing, yeah, you can obviously blame Kasplex saying, because of this we had this and my wallet got drained or whatever. But if we are talking about the layer two, I assume that Kasplex is 100% on top of it, right? And if there are any issues, security or financial losses, I again assume that Kasplex had reviewed, and this was the reason of the audit as well, that there are no such point of failures, have reviewed this and tackled any potential security flaws. Obviously, nothing is bulletproof, so things can happen in life, right? Even if you have tens of audits and if you have everything settled,
No,
something
of course, yeah.
might happen. So liability depends on how you see it. Liability from financial point of view, like they need to reimburse if there is a security fund or let's say something like this, which for the time being I'm not aware of. I suppose that can be used and reimbursed. Will KEF step in? Again, I do not know. Maybe KEF can review this. But at the end of the day, we are the ones that build the layer two, right? So if something fails from the layer two perspective, that's obviously with us.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it gets into legality, and I would prefer to avoid that topic. It's an important topic, but perhaps, there are a lot of nuances, where it's listed, what type of company it is, and all sorts of other things that kicks in, like insurance and whatnot. Who will be liable? My guess answer is user, but that's kind of question it will face with closed source code. I think, yeah, we've covered off this topic. I'm going to just skip past that. This is from Shai. Let's quickly go through them. Some of them we've already touched upon. So what is the trust model to be confirmed? You're going to release some of that information, right? Anything you want to add there? Anything additional you want to add?
No.
How will bridging work? You don't know. It's done by third party. That's all we know so far. Yeah?
Yes.
Cool. All right. When will you publish it? When will you publish?
The audit, I suppose. According to the tweet that we sent on the 25th, yes.
Yeah, okay, all right. We'll find out what's there. Didn't you announce that you're getting a secure... Okay, we've already covered that. How does it make sense to announce a launch date before the audit was even published? Will it be published before launch? You're saying it's already done, so we can skip past that. What about the source code and documentation? What about the source code? We've talked about the documentation. What about the source code?
Yes. So the source code, what about it? If we are going to open source it or not, right? So Kasplex approach was to, and is to, not was to, is to open source gradually, like others are doing as well, the code. And again, now depends on who's watching this from what angle. If you say we will not open source for very, let's say, specific reasons, people will say, okay, this is centralized, we don't trust it, there might be issues, you might steal, you might do whatever, right? Which is a fair assumption. Or others can say, okay, I understand that you poured tons of money in development for the last 6 months and you don't want to have your code publicly exposed until everything is, let's say, settled and let's say everything is like verified and you have the entire image of the ecosystem. So now depends on this. So let's deep dive more on this one, Ankit. Kasplex decision is to open source, as I was saying, the components gradually. And we did this with the RPC. The RPC component has been open sourced, I don't know, again, 1 week, 2 weeks back, 3 weeks. It's again published on Twitter. How about the remaining components? They will be open sourced again gradually, up to a point where everything will be visible for everyone to review and to read the code. Why isn't it being done now? Again, this is an internal decision, and with the caveat, or let's say with the not the caveat, with the potential feedback that this is centralized and you might be a bad actor. That's again a fair statement. But having in mind that building a layer 2 on top of Kaspa is not a copy-paste layer 2 from Ethereum. Maybe people will believe this. Meaning that you cannot just take Arbitrum layer 2 and put it on top of Kaspa and say, we have a Kaspa layer 2. Developing the layer 2 on Kaspa means and meant for the team to deep dive to the core root of the functions and functionality of Kaspa and adapt the layer 2 to handle those functionalities. I would say some of the activities might be also considered very niche, very specific, and which took a lot of time to solve a specific or tens of issues that the team encountered. So by having this effort for months, having a lot of money being spent on building a layer 2, for someone to then just open source it for everyone to make sure that the solution is, let's say, 100% to be trusted, right? Because that's the discussion. If you don't open source, we cannot trust you, because if you have a closed black box, people cannot see what's under the hood, so you can be a bad actor. Again, that is a point of view, but then it comes to also the IP rights, the effort, the sensitivity of the information, and how everything of, let's say, of these components are being released to the community. So in a nutshell,
Yeah.
Kasplex will open source gradually the components. We already started doing that. Others are doing exactly the same thing. They are not open source and they are open source gradually. And I'm talking about other chains, other protocols, other things, up to a level where you are able to say, okay, this is the GitHub, you can review everything and do it. Of course, during this time, you'll have people that will not use your application or your layer 2 because of, they will say, we cannot trust that. That's fine, of course, but others will use it, right? So until we have the open source, the end users have the decision and possibility. Of course, it's a free word to use it or not to use it. But the reasoning, as I explained, is well, let's say, well discussed and established.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. It's up to the user to decide. You know, I guess we are playing in the decentralized space. From my perspective, it makes sense, right, when people are asking these questions, because the more decentralized it is, the more trust it builds. You know, period. There is no discussion to it, right? You're not creating another bank that people distrust. So I think that's important. But I do hear you about the IP and investment that's gone into it. And yeah, perhaps if there was a timeline how soon you're thinking of launching and open sourcing it, that might put some of these concerns to rest.
Yeah, I don't have the specific timeline to open source, but the end goal, that's the end goal. open source everything.
Yeah. So eventually will happen one day. Cool. What kind of ZK proof system are you using? We haven't touched upon. I think I wanted to keep the ZK discussion out of this, just to focus on our discussion. But anything quickly you want to add on the kind of ZK proof system you're using?
I would like to defer this to Chris whenever I don't want to say stupid things.
Okay, all right. So this is specific to zero knowledge proof because you are, as you've highlighted, you're building zero knowledge EVM, ZK EVM, which is different from just the standard EVM. So again, as I said, it's you need to understand circuits. It's a different discussion, perhaps for a different day for Chris. Are you going to use a prover network? Anything you want to add there?
Unfortunately not, but because again, I need to defer to some capable people that know technicalities, not, yeah.
Will it be possible to trustlessly sync full nodes or only light nodes based on trusted snapshots?
Again, apologies, need to defer to Chris.
All right. I think that's all we have. Any closing thoughts you have, for this session? Anything we haven't covered off, perhaps?
No, thank you for this, Ankit. Obviously, it's very, very useful. I don't have any closing thoughts besides the fact that, as I was mentioning, September is the month for the smart contracts. People will love it. People will hate it. Again, that's part of the life and of the process. What I'm looking forward to is to be honest, is to see the smart contracts layer 2, which again is not a perfect solution, be it developed by Kasplex or by Igra or by anyone. What I want to see is the ecosystem growing, people talking more about Kaspa, because at the end of the day, Kaspa unites everyone. It's not about Kasplex or other things, it's about Kaspa. And looking forward to Mr. Jonathan and Mr. Sutton to develop more and to provide more, let's say, insights on their upgrades. So whenever the ZK from Kaspa or the, let's say, native smart contracts from Kaspa will come up, that's something that I'm looking forward to. But to finalize this, again, Kasplex is not perfect. Obviously, I'm not perfect. I do tend to, and I always reply to everyone that has, let's say, that is reaching out in a respectful manner. And I'm more than happy to help and assist up to my, let's say, abilities that are limited in some areas or maybe exceed other areas. So that's that. We shall see how the mainnet launch goes and when the date is, and we can obviously reconnect after the mainnet to see how that went.